back to the Daily Grind with the only free MMA channel that fucking matters, full-time MMA, and shit just got interesting with Tyron Woodley's title defense over Demian Maia. A lot of people have criticized Tyron Woodley, saying it was a boring fight, but more details have been released, and these are interesting details because I will say, whether or not these details are all true, they do make sense. They explain a lot of things, and Ariel Helwani had a lot of points to make to piggyback off Tyron Woodley's own defense of his title fight. So first we'll get into what Tyron Woodley had to say about his methodical UFC 214 title win over Demian Maia, and then we'll get into how Ariel Helwani continued to defend him, because you remember Dana White was blasting Tyron Woodley. Ariel Helwani doesn't like Dana White too much for stuff specifically like that. Ariel Helwani was making Tyron Woodley's win sound real good, and Dana White, you know, he was making it sound bad. So let's first get into what Tyron Woodley had to say, because he talks about an injury and such. Tyron Woodley said, "I thought it was a great performance. You've got a guy on a 7-fight winning streak. He's taken out all 7 opponents, world-class guys, gotten on their back, submitted them, very resilient, very persistent in his attack, but how many takedowns did he try? 24. 24 denied. So I think we need to look at the different stats." Damn, that's fucking cold-blooded. Hey, this is a good one. There's a lot of people that don't like Tyron Woodley, don't want to watch his fights, and that's fine. I told you guys, Tyron Woodley's one of my favorite fighters. I'll be watching his next fight regardless, but I'm not mad at you if you don't want to. Now, he continues. This is my 4th title fight in 12 months. He shot 24 times, and think of how many different top-class welterweights he would have been able to put on the ground. He was not able to do any of that on me. I felt good. I felt my conditioning was great. We accepted this fight 4 weeks ago, and I felt amazing. Sometimes I think those shorter camps are better. Damn. A lot of people were buying Demian Maia's excuse. Oh, I only had 4 weeks to prepare. He wasn't using it as a complete excuse, but you shouldn't even mention that stuff because, like I said, in the championship fight, you take the offers you're given. Tyron Woodley fought Robbie Lawler on short notice, knocked him out, took advantage of that opportunity. Michael Bisping fought Luke Rockhold on way shorter notice, took advantage of it, knocked him out. Now, it's not Tyron Woodley's fault Demian Maia didn't go in there and knock him out. Demian Maia got the opportunity to go in there and win the belt, and he was very unsuccessful. Lost 5 out of 5 rounds, wasn't able to score any takedowns in the fight, didn't do any damage to champion Tyron Woodley, and just because Tyron Woodley, the champion, didn't score a knockout, people are upset. And he goes in to talk about why he didn't try and finish Demian Maia more, because if you remember, my one criticism of the fight was in the 4th and 5th round. I believe Tyron Woodley could have turned it up more and tried to finish the fight just to please the fans, even though that shouldn't have to, well, actually it should be. Just to please the fans, you should try and finish it. You already showed your excellent takedown defense, your perfect takedown defense in the first 3 rounds, 4 rounds. So at some point I would have just liked to see him try and finish Demian Maia. But when you're a fucking champion, like he said, going against a top welterweight in the world, a guy that has finished his last 7 opponents, as far as he was able to get the win. He didn't finish them all, but he was close to finishing them all. He didn't finish Jorge Masvidal, but he beat Jorge Masvidal. 7-fight winning streak against Carlos Condit, Jorge Masvidal. Demian Maia's got a murderer's row on his resume, and he went out there and he was on a 7-fight winning streak, took out every one of those guys down, and Tyron Woodley was able to stuff 24 takedowns. Fuck, that's impressive. I've been adamant about that. 24 out of 24 takedown defenses, that is fucking impressive. He did the same type of things in a previous fight. I believe it was Nate Marquardt. He stuffed 18 out of 18 takedowns. Now, he was, we're not going to get into the history there, but what I'll say is, this is what Tyron had to say about why he didn't finish Demian Maia. "I felt like I was going to finish him. I threw an overhand right in the 1st or 2nd round, and my shoulder slipped out, and I was like, oh shit, I can't hit him with this overhand right, which is my money maker. So I had to throw straight punches. A couple of other times after that, I saw an opening, and I had to throw it just out of reaction. I threw it again, and it kind of slipped out. So 2 or 3 times I felt like my shoulder kind of slipped out. So I had to be really disciplined and use a lot of feints. And if you guys saw me, a couple of times you saw me come forward and look like I was going to throw the right hand, but I had to really second guess whether I should throw it or not, or just proceed with pushing forward. That's what champions do. I'm very happy with my conditioning and very happy with my coaching and game plan. It's just the mental toughness." Wow. So he's disclosing an injury he sustained in the fight. Now, I didn't see that in the fight, but maybe that's because he was being a champion and wasn't showing kept his game face on. When he went that fake, the overhand right, if he would have winced in pain, maybe Demian Maia would, there's probably still not much Demian Maia would have been able to do. even with Tyron Woodley having an injured right shoulder, not having his overhand right, just his takedown defense was really able to beat Demian Maia in itself. As far as it was dominant, it was demoralizing for Demian Maia. You're a fucking grappling specialist. Jiu-jitsu's your bread and butter. You're not throwing high kicks to set up your strikes, as the commentators were saying. You're not scared of Tyron Woodley jumping in your guard, yet you're not throwing high head kicks going for that knockout. You know, because most people don't throw head kicks because they fear someone catching their kick or falling backwards, losing their balance, and being on their back. Demian Maia doesn't mind being on his back. He's fine if he throws a head kick, misses, and lands on his back, because no one's going to follow him, the jiu-jitsu specialist, to the ground. But he wasn't able to throw those high kicks until one time in the 4th or 5th round when it was too late and it didn't land. But one of the commentators was saying he should have been throwing those earlier and often against the champion, trying to take advantage of the opportunity. So a lot of the onus here falls on Demian Maia. Demian Maia has never been known as an entertaining fighter, except for when he goes in there versus someone like Carlos Condit and submits him in the first round, because he's able to just grab on Carlos Condit, get him to the ground, submit him. He tried to do that to Tyron Woodley, but Tyron Woodley stuffed it 24 times. So put some fucking respect on Tyron Woodley's name, the champion. Now, you don't have to watch his fucking fights if you don't want to see his excellent takedown defense. If you're not a fan of a dominant champion, if you're not a fan of not playing someone's game, cerebral fighting, if you just want to see brawlers, fucking fucking Justin Gaethje, Michael Johnson type fights, well, then it's going to be hard for you to find those, because how are you going to go into a fight knowing, oh, this is going to be a brawl, this is going to be a zombie brawl? You know, you have to be ready for 2017, motherfucker. There's technical fighters, there's grapplers, wrestlers, jiu-jitsu specialists like Demian Maia, smart fighters like Tyron Woodley, wrestlers like George St. Pierre. So you can't go into every fight expecting a fucking brawl just because you want to see a brawl. And so one thing I'll say about Tyron Woodley is he complains he comes off as a complainer sometimes, so people look for reasons to hate him. They look for reasons to say, oh, fuck Tyron Woodley, I don't like Tyron Woodley, he's a drama queen, his fights are boring. But was it boring when he knocked out Robbie Lawler? Was it boring when he knocked out any of these guys, Jay Heron, Josh Koscheck in the UFC? Was any of that boring? Fuck no. People don't like Tyron Woodley, so they throw shade on his entire legacy, his fighting style, all of that. And then Dana White comes out and co-signs it, which gives the fans all the ammunition they need to hate Tyron Woodley. Oh, how could you like that fight? This is one interesting fucking fact that Dana White was throwing around, and I just want to point out the inconsistency here. Whenever he was talking about Tyron Woodley's takedown defense, he says Tyron Woodley has the second best takedown defense in all of UFC. But Tyron Woodley has the best takedown defense in all of the welterweight division. Keep that in mind. Demian Maia was talking about the entire UFC when it comes to his takedown defense, instead of giving him credit as the best welterweight takedown defense. But now when it comes to the record for throwing the least strikes in a championship fight, Dana White wants to use the welterweight division only and not the entire UFC. Because yes, when Demian Maia says the record was 130 strikes in a title fight and they broke that by under half, so it's disappointing, that was a welterweight title fight. That wasn't the entire UFC record. That was just the welterweight record. So that's very inconsistent. When you want to talk about Tyron Woodley's takedown defense and you say, oh, he's got the second best in the game instead of the first best, because he has the first best in the welterweight division. So the first one, you want to talk about the entire UFC whenever you're throwing shade. But whenever you want to diss Tyron Woodley, you just talk about the welterweight division in your example. Oh yeah, that was the lowest strikes ever in a fight, a championship fight. You were just talking about the welterweight division there. So that's very inconsistent. So for some reason, man, Dana White comes out and he fucking is using this as a reason to take away Tyron Woodley's title fight. Tyron Woodley's seen this shit coming though, man. Tyron Woodley said, no, they're already talking about fighting, man. Even if I beat Demian Maia, George St. Pierre don't want these problems. He don't want a concussion. He doesn't want these. And Demian was like, no, or Dana was like, no, buddy, if you win, this is your fight. He goes out there and wins, and Dana says, oh yeah, not your fight. Sorry, bud. Dana is very consistent when it comes to stuff like this. So you can't, Tyron Woodley's probably going to come out and complain a lot more about this situation in the future. He hasn't been commenting on the GSP Bisping fight recently, but Whitaker, I'm sure he's going to come out. Whenever Whitaker comes out and says something about it, the fans are going to be on Whitaker's side, because Whitaker's done nothing but earn his fucking title shot with Michael Bisping, and it's still going to get taken away possibly. So There's a lot of things going on. I'm definitely leaning more toward Tyron Woodley's side here after watching the MMA Hour and hearing what Ariel Helwani had to say on top of everything Tyron had to say. Ariel Helwani had to say, he was talking about how if you're not a fan of technical fighting, if you all you want to see is a knockout, that's not Tyron Woodley's fault. He said, why do you only want to see Tyron Woodley get a knockout? Do you realize how many other aspects there are of fighting? And if you're talking about never watching one of Tyron Woodley's fights again, he was on a pay-per-view, one of the most stacked pay-per-views of the year. So even if all of the other 4 fights were worth the money, why are you complaining? One fight, one championship fight wasn't as entertaining as you wanted, and you're complaining. You might just have a problem with Tyron Woodley. And if that's the case, that's fine. Don't watch his fights. But he's a fucking champion. Best takedown defense in welterweight history, which says a lot about the potential GSP fight, because GSP wants to take a guy down. And for him to be avoiding Tyron Woodley, it's kind of like he don't want no smoke with Tyron Woodley, because he knows Tyron Woodley's takedown defense is on fucking fleek. So GSP don't want those problems, because not only is Tyron Woodley going to stuff GSP's takedowns, he's got a chance of giving GSP a concussion. And when GSP retired, he was talking about not wanting concussions from the fight game. So it makes sense for George St. Pierre to not want to fight the best takedown defensive fighter champion in welterweight history on top of a guy that can give you a concussion. So all of this Michael Bisping, George St. Pierre talk, super fight, stock market shit, take that as far as you want, but know the truth. George St. Pierre does not want any smoke with Tyron Woodley, and on top of the stock market excuse, it's got something to do with that takedown defense and those concussions. And that's how I feel. Tyron Woodley's one of my favorite fighters. If he really did injure his shoulder in the fight, then that's enough to explain everything. Why he couldn't throw overhand rights in the 4th and 5th round, and he was still able to defend all of those takedowns with a hurt shoulder or arm. So, motherfucking respect on Tyron Woodley's name here. All the people who don't like Tyron Woodley, feel free to hate on him. I don't care. But whenever I fucking show respect to Tyron Woodley and I watch his next fights and I get excited for whenever he has to fight an entertaining style matchup, because this is the last thing I'll say. In his last 3 fights, he didn't make his own matchup. He didn't get to pick who he was fighting. No, and like he said, this is his 4th championship fight in under 12 months. A lot of people don't fight 4 times in under 12 months, period. For a champion to defend his belt, to fight 4 title fights 4 times in under 12 months, you better put some fucking respect on his name, whether you like the fight or not. Because usually he's fighting on a stacked card, and so you're getting your money's worth regardless. So Tyron Woodley, probably the most dominant welterweight champion in history as far as it's looking now, because if you look down the division, you can't see anybody that can beat Tyron Woodley coming up the ladder. Robbie Lawler's the only person that might get a welterweight title shot coming up soon, and he's acting like he don't want no smoke with Tyron either. So a lot of people don't want no smoke with Tyron. You can say it's because he's a boring fighter, or you can say it's because they don't want no smoke. And I'm leaning toward they don't want no smoke with Tyron, because he is one of the best 170-pound champions we've ever seen. Whether you like his fights or not, that's the truth. He's dominant. You got to fucking respect the dominance of a champion. Whenever George St. Pierre was fighting, were you saying people, oh no, I hate George St. Pierre, I'll never watch his fights? Even Tyron Woodley is a more exciting fighter than George St. Pierre, because he always possesses that fucking knockout potential. Unlike George St. Pierre, you're not waiting on George St. Pierre's overhand right to end the guy's life. You're waiting on the takedown to land. With Tyron Woodley, you're waiting on that overhand right, and you're waiting on the takedown to land. So Tyron Woodley is a more feared fighter, in my opinion, than any other welterweight champion in history. How many welterweight champions have there been that people did not want to fight? Usually people take the opportunity when they get to fight the champion. There's not many people clamoring to fight the champion Tyron Woodley. And with that being said, put some motherfucking respect on Tyron Woodley's name. It is what it is. Hit thumbs up, hit subscribe. Let the haters know what the fuck you think about this shit in the comments. Dude. Why is women's football so rare? Because it's quite hard to find enough women willing to wear the same outfit.